Hello, Millwall fans. Paul Eiffel here. It's time for Chat with Chaps.
Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Chaps. This is the post-match analysis for yesterday's game up at the Riverside, where it finished Middlesbrough 1, Millwall 0. A lot to talk about, of course, and a lot of it probably off the pitch. But on the pitch, that's now 6 games played, 3 1-1 draws, 3 1-0 defeats, 3 points in 6 games, only 3 goals scored. It's not looking great on the pitch, and I think that's where all of our focus should remain. But of course, we have to talk about a lot that is going off the pitch. Before we do that, again, I'm going to start doing this because it seems to really help. Hit the like button for me, please, guys, if you don't mind. If I say it, I seem to get a lot more of them. So please do like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. Remember, everything we're doing this season goes to cancer research. So, you know, you're part of a good thing. So first and foremost, I want to say fair play to the 387, I think the number was quoted, that went up to Borough yesterday. And yeah, this sort of close to Christmas, with all of everything that was going on. Yeah, massive fair play, and I hope that despite the result, they got what they wanted from that, and their opportunity to say bye to the one and only Neil Harris, who, you know, I'd like to personally thank for everything he's done for the football club. I don't see that as being the end, if I'm honest. Like, he'll be back at some point. He has to be, right? He's ingrained in this football club. He'll be back. But you know, a massive thank you to him. And look, he's obviously got his lovers, he's got his haters, he's got his people that sit in between. But for me, if it wasn't for him, we'd be playing League One football. And I would like to think the majority of people can at least agree with that. So a massive thank you to Neil Harris for everything you've done. And that is now the end of that chapter. And we have to move on now, and quickly, because whilst we still find ourselves mid-table, to not have scored more than a goal since September, to only have 3 points from 18, it isn't good. And, you know, the games don't get much easier. So we need to start picking up points. And we'll talk about some of the things that we've seen at Borough, some of the things we saw in the last few games that are just common now, that have to be addressed in the January transfer window, regardless of who's here. And I think one of the most telling points is Neil Harris has been proved right. The quality up front isn't there. It's there for all of us to see. We're not able to break teams down and score goals. That final ball, that final shot, and we saw a lot of that yesterday. Anyway, let's get into the game. I'm not going to do a massive play-by-play because particularly the second half, there really wasn't much to talk about. But we will talk about the game, of course. So the lineup for us, no graphic, because I am, as you can probably tell, for those of you who are listening to this on YouTube, I am in airport hotel, other way around. That's why I wasn't able to get there yesterday, traveling for work. So apologies if you hear any, like, I don't know how clear this is going to come out. I don't have all my normal setup, so apologies if you hear aeroplanes and stuff going off. Anyway, enough about that. So the team was Lucas Jensen in goal. Whether you can draw conclusions, by the way, from this team as Neil Harris's final team, I don't think so, because Tom Bradshaw definitely would have started if that was the case. But anyway, Lucas Jensen in goal. Right back, Ryan Leonard. Japhet Tanganga and Murray Wallace as centre-backs. Ryan Leonard with the armband coming back into the side. Danny Mack at left-back, replacing Joe Bryan. A central midfield, George Saville and Casper Denor. And then the front three, behind the central striker, was Femi Aziz, Romain Esse and George Honeyman returning to the side, with Macaulay Langstaff up top. So that was a side. I don't want to draw too many conclusions from it, but a couple that stood out to me was Danny Mack playing over Joe Bryan. Is there anything to read into there? Not sure. We've talked a lot about how Joe Bryan does so much good going forwards, but then is sometimes such a liability defensively, with the the Sheffield United goal being very, very prevalent to that point. We then have, of course, another thing as well, which I found, and I know he's not quite fully fit, but Harris's decision to maintain with Denor and Saville, when clearly Denor was not in favour last season, I think also tells you about how that's evolved. And credit to Denor, obviously, for winning Harris round with some of his displays. I thought he was pretty good yesterday, one of our better players. And then, of course, Langstaff getting the nod over Bradshaw or Ivanovic. And that's, yes, okay, he's not played two up top, Harris, but he's played everyone up there now. He's tried Ivanovic, he's tried Langstaff, and they flattered his Eve. The quality, I think he's been point proven right, that the quality just isn't there. Bit of a frantic start to the game. And look, I'm going to be fully transparent. Normally, obviously, sorry, I'm just checking my notes. Normally, I sort of, if I can't get to the game, I'll put it on Millwall TV. I couldn't, so I found a dodgy stream on my phone. It happened to be the Middlesbrough stream. And listen, I know they're Middlesbrough fans, and if you listen to this, but within the first 5 minutes, I've noted down Millwall are set-piece city, and they know their limitations, so they get the ball forward quickly. Now, there might be some truth to that, but still, very biased commentary. Anywho, look, we could argue we'd be at 1-0 up in 2 minutes. A big opportunity for us in 2 minutes for Macaulay Langstaff. If that's later on in the game, does it change the outcome? Don't know. But this is the margins. These are the levels at Championship football where 8 minutes later they will get one chance, score it, and that wins them the game. We have, in my opinion, 2 chances that are as good as that, and we don't take either of them, and that's why we walk away with no points. If I'm being honest, I thought we were good for a draw yesterday. Middlesbrough fans, listen to this. Tell me if you agree or disagree. I did look at social media last night from a Middlesbrough perspective, and it didn't come across that you thought was a particularly resounding victory. So I would imagine you would agree there's some truth to that. But Macaulay Langstaff has to score there. He has to score, and this is where. Do you know what's really surprised me with Macaulay Langstaff? I thought he would come in to the side and offer nothing but be this incredible finisher, given the amount of goals he scored. This is just I don't claim to have knowledge of lower league football. I don't really watch it. The Championship I watch intensely, but lower league football, no. So that was my assumption coming in. And actually, I think it's the opposite. I actually think some of his play, link-up play and movement and getting into to the right areas, I think he's quite good. But Langstaff has to score. And by the way, apologies, I got my timing wrong. That was on 7 minutes, where it was a poor back pass from George Edmondson. But, of course, before that, on 2 minutes, sorry, I've got this the wrong way around, we did have a big chance for Langstaff again, where I think he he gets himself again in a good position, and he sort of half volleys it back to goal. And I think it's Luke Ayling. Always impressed with Luke Ayling. I have to say, why Leeds got rid of him, I really have no idea. But it was a big chance. So we had 2 big chances within 7 minutes, and we had a few corners, and we should be 1-0 up. Would it change the overall complexion? I don't know. It's difficult because Middlesbrough only really had one major chance, and obviously they took it, and that was on 10 minutes where Lat, who probably one of, if not the most impressive centre forward I've seen this season. I've always rated him. I think he's a very, very, very good player. He can finish. He's athletic. There was one run that he did post his goal that he just sort of seemed to glide past about 4 of our players, which is the difference. And I'll come on to that in a moment. But this is good play. Finazaz and Latty plays a 1-2 with Finazaz, give and go. And then a combination of Murray Wallace being slightly caught out, misjudges the read of the returning ball, and then it's drilled through Lucas Jensen's legs. To be honest, I don't blame Lucas Jensen. It's like one of them where it was drilled so hard for a guy of his stature to get down would probably be quite difficult. So I don't know if I necessarily blame him for that. Yes, Murray Wallace was caught out for that, but I just want to say, and he'll be disappointed with that, I'm sure, being the professional that he is. But I think other than Tanganga, other defenders get caught out by that as well, because it was really good football, really, really good one-touch football, which again is the difference. And I also think it's fair to say at this point that given how stale he must be from his absence in the side and how he'd been written off by a lot of people, I actually think we need to give credit to Murray Wallace for his overall performances in the last few games, because I don't think he's necessarily stood out in a bad way. Tanganga continues to stand out, and again was my man of the match. I thought he was outstanding yesterday at times, and at times you saw him visibly frustrated. I did when I had the obviously me and Tango are best mates. No, when I had a chat with him, because I at the sponsorship day, he says he goes into like a bit of a zone when he plays. He's the coolest, calmest guy, but when he's on that pitch, he almost goes into a different zone. And I think you saw that he seemed visibly frustrated a lot of times, particularly in the first half. But anywho, we go 1-0 down, 10 minutes. I've noted down there the half decent effort from a free kick that they didn't quite get their head on it. It was on 17 minutes. Jensen kind of misjudged the flight of the ball, but thankfully there was no one at the back post to meet it. And then, of course, we have another big chance. A great ball through from Romain Esse. Aziz does quite well, actually, to sort of take the ball on the turn, get out his feet. But again, he's got to score. Yeah. And you know, these, both Macaulay Langstaff and Aziz, yes, the angle is tight. And yes, big credit to the goalkeeper, who I was really impressed with, by the way, Solbrin. So any Middlesbrough fans listen to this. I know he's technically your number 2, and I know there's been a big debate for you whether to drop Sonny Dieng or not. But based on yesterday's showing, I thought he was excellent, your goalkeeper, and without him, I think you wouldn't have taken 3 points. So, which is frustrating for us, of course. But that's a big chance. That's a really big chance that again we don't take. And then we have the other standout chance of which, don't get me wrong, Esse's created this all himself. He seems to jink past 3 players. And then, unfortunately, sort of half scuffs his shot and it rolls straight into Solbrin. That was on 37. And yeah, you look at that and how we go in at half-time 1-0 down. It was really difficult to take, to be honest. Gave you a little bit of optimism for the second half, which was silly of me, because the second half from both teams' perspective was really poor. We had a lot more of the ball in the second half. So I've got it here that the possession for the first half they had 65%, and in the second half they only had 53. So it was a lot more even in the second half. But then at the same time, you know, when you look at big chances, XG, the first half was where it all happened, and we find ourselves again where we have a higher XG, more shots, and yet we still can't score a goal than the opposition. Second half, like I say, I'm not going to go massively into it because there really wasn't much to talk about. I'm just checking my notes here. Of course, Harris makes a lot of changes, right? You know, on 59, he brings on Watmore and Imaku for Aziz and Honeyman. I've noted down here, this is how impressive Tanganga was. 60 minutes, Latte Lat was played into the box. Tanganga just tracks his run, shuffles across, sees it out, but at the same time, not only sort of sees it out, but it's not going to go out, so he's got to do something with the ball. He just sort of delicately just plays it off of Latte Lat, goes out for a goal kick. Like, just quality. You trust me, appreciate him, because he is unbelievable at this level, and I'm sure any Middlesbrough fans watching this will agree. On 76 minutes, another substitution, treble substitution this time. Mihailo Ivanovic, Tom Bradshaw and Billy Mitchell all come on. If I'm honest, I don't think any of those guys had an impact on the game, certainly not positive. Billy Mitchell seemed a little bit off it, if I'm honest. It must be difficult coming back into the side, but he just seemed to, he got caught out a couple of times and needed to almost take an extra touch. But it must be difficult for Billy to come into to a game like that, and also he's been out for some time. So looking forward to getting him back fit and in the team. But yeah, noted down here that I don't really think Bradshaw or Ivanovic made an impact on the game. The only player that I think did have an impact on the game, no, let me rephrase that, tried to have an impact on the game was Imaku. And this is really weird, and this is my observations with Imaku, is so based on the lack of game time, I think it's fair to say that Neil Harris wasn't an Imaku fan. And the way in which you watch the players with him, I'm not sure they are. Like, I'm not trying to, if you actually watch the body language, what they seem to do, it's really bizarre. It's almost as if there's this really great atmosphere within the group that everyone talks about, but you see a lot of players like moaning and shouting at Imaku, and whether that's because he's just not doing things that he's been told he should do, I don't know. I'm not here to speculate, but I did observe that. But I also felt a little bit sorry for him, if I'm honest, because we used to do this to Jed, be like, give him the ball and let him try and beat two players, and at times he does, and at times he don't. But yeah, it was weird, and Imaku's a strange one, and maybe he scares the shit out of defenses. Let's be honest, with his pure pace and athleticism, and he's that one player that has, you know, you look at Middlesbrough, and they have Lat, Ben Doak, that have both got tons of pace. Bergsall, really impressed with Bergsall, by the way. There were a few players that for Middlesbrough that impressed me yesterday. Bergsall being one of them. Obviously, picked him up from a relegated side in Huddersfield. I was really impressed with Johnny Howson. I hate to say that, given our history with him, but at 36, I thought he was excellent. Had a real engine on him and did suffer pace a couple of times. But I was impressed with him. I was obviously impressed with the keeper, and then Lat. You know, there's some good players there. And Middlesbrough, this is the levels. Middlesbrough just seem to have that ability to not take that extra touch, and which therefore gives them more space and more time. And with more space, and then with the pace they have, they can exploit that. You know, they were so quick in the transition. Attacking wise, and again, I think this is testimony to our defensive work, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to the interview with Sam Parkin, he talked about how good we are defensively, and our other managers are recognising, Johnny Jackson, Russell Martin, to name two, that have obviously called that out. But, you know, I can see why Middlesbrough score a lot of goals, because they're able to create space with the way that they can knock the ball about so quickly in a transition. So yeah, very impressed with them. I think going forwards, not for the whole game, but in terms of some of the football they play, it's probably up there with the best I've seen this season, to be honest. And I fully expect, I tipped them to be in the top six at the start of the season. I fully expect them to do so. Defensively, I think a better side than us, with the mistakes that they made, they will concede more goals. But that's just us at the moment, isn't it? And we huffed and we puffed, didn't we? But we couldn't get that goal. And this is what I say, you know, I think it's when we think about how this then relates to the off the field issues or what we have going on at the moment, is the way I look at it is, and I'm drawing conclusions from what I've read, what I've listened to, and trying to make my own mind up. And I basically think the club have come out and said, we want to go in a different direction. We almost want to be a better selling club, right? We want to develop assets. We want to sign a younger profile of player that will hopefully gradually help us become more sustainable club, make more money for the long term, which, by the way, is absolutely the right model. I think I think Harris is aligned to that, because why wouldn't he be? He's a Millwall fan like all of us. Of course he's going to be. But I think he's basically said, look, agree with that, but the players that you've signed for the future are not ready right now. And therefore I need players for here and now. And if you don't give me those players, I'm going to have to play the likes of Honeyman and Bradshaw, because I can trust them. I know what they can do. And then I just think it's been this constant back and forth over that, you know, that kind of here and now. And actually, if we give it a go, we can get in the top six, versus no, let's think about the long term. That's my interpretation of what's happened and why we find ourselves in a situation where Harris has had enough. And who's right or who's wrong in that? I don't know. it's difficult to tell, because I think on one hand the club is absolutely right, we have to do that, but at the same time it cannot be at the sacrifice for the here and now, because I promise you, well, I can't promise you, but we'll never know, so maybe I can, but I promise you this league is not as strong as it has been, and you just got to look at it. We've lost, we've in my opinion, we've lost 1-0 to 3 sides that will be in the top 8, right? Or our 3 top 8 sides. Obviously, Coventry's a little bit difficult because obviously they had a really poor start. And I don't think we were outplayed. We weren't outfought. I think we had as many chances. We just lacked that final moment quality. And this is what I'm saying. Like, yes, let's protect the future of the football club. But I genuinely think with 1 or 2 more additions, we could have been competing this year. And for me now, it's about staying in the league, consolidating, and then building around this new direction for next year. And for me, what is so vital is this just slaps of the Joe Edward experiment again, and we have to get it right. The balance of the transition has to be right. We cannot try to completely change the footballing style midway through a season, because these players are amazing at what they do, but they are not a progressive build-up, fast-paced. They're not, and we saw that. So it is vital that the manager that comes in, the board, everyone, Gallen, JB Junior, etc., they have to know that this has to be gradual, and it can't be something that they try and do overnight. I think it has gone a little bit off, hasn't it? You know, you could tell something wasn't quite right. Winless in 6, scoring only 3 goals. It's definitely been a drop off, and maybe it is the right thing for all at this moment in time to sort of part ways and try and move on. One of the things that Harris said in his post-match was get behind the football club, because it's at its best when everything's together, and all he did was kind of bring it back together in February, and he's right. And I think this is why in the last 2-3 weeks we have seen the atmospheres haven't been as good, the crowds haven't been as good, the results haven't been as good. I think it's because we're not all pulling in the same direction. And as I said, for me, I would love Harris to have stayed, and I'll stand by that. But he hasn't. He's moved on. The football club is priority, and we now need to make sure whoever comes in, we get behind them. We get behind the players get behind the manager. We get behind the board. Like, we have to. This is our club. So I am nervously excited for the next chapter, because why wouldn't you be? Sometimes change is good. But I'm still nervous. I'm not going to lie. And I also think it's vital that we get this next couple of transfer windows correct, because when you look at the amount of, should we say, the old guard Millwall players that are out of contract in the next 6 months or so, how much is the new manager going to want to keep them? For what it's worth, I think, do you know what? I actually don't know what I think on that, because I was about to say it's worth keeping a few of them around. But is it? Or is it best to do a complete clean slate? We have been guilty of being over-law at times. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here. You know, I look at it on the surface and be like, Sav has to be at that club. He has to be. Leonard's been worthy of a new deal. I don't know when their contracts end. I'm assuming that they're both up at the end of the season. I'm digressing slightly, but let's talk a little bit about the manager coming in, and then we'll close out. So I had a really good chat with Sam Parkin, and we talked a bit about some of the managers that have been named. Mark Robins was one of them. Sam said that Mark Robins is very much a manager. He's not, he's not the coach. Great man manager, but a lot of the success at Coventry is also down to the coaching. And he's not that. He said essentially that is Robbins an upgrade on Neil Harris when Neil Harris knows Millwall? And he didn't think he was. So I thought that was really eye-opening to hear that. So, you know, it just shows you the knowledge. You look at it on the surface, you think, oh, Mark Robbins, what a great job he's done. And that's not to say he hasn't, but there's a lot of ingredients that go into that success: recruitment, coaching, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's Mark Robbins. I'm sure the club will talk to him. Why wouldn't you? Matt Bloomfield was early favourite, and speaking to Sam and looking at, there's a few articles that I put on Twitter. He's just done his UEFA Pro licence with Sean Dyche and Leighton Baines. So he's obviously a very high calibre coach, meticulous in his attention to detail, similar kind of setup by the sounds of it, but again, a big risk, someone that doesn't know the league. So that's the pros and cons there. Schumacher did an amazing job at Plymouth. That meant that Stoke paid a lot of money to get him out of Plymouth. And it's funny football, isn't it? Because if he was Plymouth manager and it came out that we were interested in talking to him and paying to get him out of that contract, everyone would be like, wow, what a bold statement. But because it didn't work out for him, as it hasn't for many others before and after him at Stoke, all of a sudden it feels like we're just picking someone up on a free. So for me personally, I would definitely interview Steven Schumacher. And then there's a lot of talk about David Wagner. And I woke up this morning, he's now favourite. He's rumoured to have been at games this season. I don't know if that's true or not. He got a team to the Premier League and kept them there, if I remember rightly, in Huddersfield. And I thought his Norwich side weren't bad, but if you speak to Norwich fans, they can't stand him. So I don't know. But I think the one positive is there are some good options out there. And I think that's a good thing for us. Whether or not they are coaches or managers and how that fits in with the Bulls' longer-term direction, I don't know. But I would imagine it'd be an interesting few weeks. I don't know who's staying and who's going, but it'd be interesting to see who takes training tomorrow morning, because I don't know. Yeah, and we're just going to have to watch it. You know, I think there's going to be a lot going on in the next few weeks, right? With the manager and then, of course, the January transfer window. So, yes, look, this has been a bit of a hybrid of a post-match. Middlesbrough fans, if you have listened to this, please do give us a follow, as I said, or subscribe. Would really appreciate it. And the final thing I want to say is just a huge thank you to Peter Hamilton, who I've actually never had the pleasure of meeting. So Peter, if you're on any social medias, mate, please contact me, because what you're doing for the channel, I honestly, I was gobsmacked. So thank you, Peter, means the world. We are slowly but surely getting that number to creep up for subscribers, and more importantly, the advertising revenue that comes with it that we're able to donate at the end of the season. So thank you to everyone that continues to watch and listen. Why you do, I'll never know, but thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, long may it continue. That's all for now. We'll be back after the game on next Saturday. And I'm sure the boys will do a live in the week. So plenty of stuff coming up for you. And again, thanks as always. And bye for now.